Let me share my slides. Right, yeah. All right. Who can tell us why components need to communicate? Or why should we even care about component communicate? Why should they communicate? Elvis?
I think components need to communicate in order to exchange data, in order to pass state from one component to another. Let's say we have, like now we are working on e-commerce, so hoping I'm audible.
Yeah, sure.
Like now we are working on e-commerce, so you can have a cart component and a product component. So when you click on add to cart, and then the product will appear on the cart. So I think you need that kind of communication to achieve that.
All right, that's good. Someone with a different perspective on why we need component communicating. Okay. Let's go back here and go. So right now we only have one component. If you can't remember, we only have app component, and we have our code here. Not a good practice, not a bad practice for some scenarios. If the code is less, then you can write it there. But if you're working on a big application like an e-commerce, I'm betting that you won't have one component. You'll have as many components as you know. You'll need many components. So I have this component, and I'm about to split this application. I will have add person. This will be a component, and I will have display person. So these are three components right here. One thing about component that you have to keep in mind is that components are private. When I say private, I mean the data that this component holds is private to this component and can only be used inside this component or by the template of this component. The data inside display person is also private to this component. It can only be used inside this component. So now our components are private. So how is this component supposed to communicate with this component? You can give it a try. Let's say if I add a person, display person is supposed to know that a new record was created and displayed. So how is it going to happen? By the way, don't forget about something that this is the parent and this is a child. These are the children actually. So these are children, these two, but the above is a parent. So How is this data supposed to be communicated from ear to ear? We can give it a try. Elvis?
So I think they'll need to have a shared state. So since one is writing, another one is reading, so you can have like a store, like you can have an array that is common to them, where the add person is writing to, and then the display person is reading from. So you'll have the display person listen to changes on the store on that common array, and then it will trigger the render or something like that.
All right, that's a good try. Just a question. Your array will be based on which component?
The shared state will be at the parent now.
The parent. Okay, that's a good try. Who else wants to try this? Just go ahead.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know in Angular, but I can use another language. We can create something like an effect, a state. For example, in React, we can say use effect. Then in that effect, then we create a state. Then whenever the whole body renders, the changes do happen. They use effect. But all there is in Angular, there is something like that.
Use effect. It's called NGON in it. So your use effect will have to have dependencies, right?
We have two states. We have an add person state and display person state. So whenever, and then you write a small function there, whenever the add person changes, the display function, whenever an add person is displayed, the display person shows.
Okay.
So the use effect will help in creating the timeout. For example, whenever you see use effect, usually renders whenever the body, whenever any use state happens.
Yeah. Just a question. Your state will be located in which component?
In the parent.
Okay. That's good. Obed.
So all the children components should always have should always be rendered at the parent component, which is the root directory.
Mm-hmm.
So when changes are made to the child component, they only update the changed part, and the others will still be displayed.
Okay. All right. Those who tried, you did an amazing job. So one thing is that for two things to communicate, we need an intermediary. For me to communicate with you over the weekend, I need my laptop and text, and also my phone maybe. So for these two components to communicate, we need something at the center. That is the communication. That will act as the link between the two. So this might be your laptop, this might be your phone. So now what will happen is that we are collecting this information from add person component and sending it to the app. And then from the app, display component will get that data and display the data. So that is the cycle that is going to happen. Add person to app, app to display person. So these are communication, but sometimes it has a disadvantage. This is what you're going to learn today, but we'll keep on improving this communication, and components are going to communicate better and better. The disadvantage of this may be this component has to be a child of one of these. Maybe it's a child of a different thing. What will happen? It will mean that you are passing data a lot through the component. Okay, assuming this data was needed in another component here, and this is a child of display. Maybe it was not needed in the display person, but it's needed in this component. So this means that for me to pass data from here all the way to here, just to go through the app, the display, and this time display does not require that data, but it has to go through that, because what happens here is a parent-child communication. It has to pass through here to components that don't need it. And maybe you have 10 components over here. So that's a lot of, we call it drilling, that is happening there. And it's so unnecessary. So we'll keep improving this communication, and at the end of the day, we'll have the best communication. By Thursday, I'm sure we are communicating better when we talk about services. So services are going to solve this. Another disadvantage that we have is that, why do we have to go this way? Why don't we pass this data just directly to this component? We don't have to go to the parent again. We'll see about that. But right now, we have to go through the parent. So this remains still our structure, and let's first add these components. So we still have our app there, and may do what? Engage. Just call it add. And this will be display. So these are the three components that we have. And I don't need this, I'll just comment it. But when it comes to display now, these two, or whatever we have from here, which is supposed to act as a display, we're going to cut it and have it where we're going to cut it and have it inside display. Right now, it breaks because we don't have data, we don't have delete. The delete method is okay, we can pass it. So we can pass these here. And let's just have a variable called data is equals to an array. Let's just type it actually. That way. So so the errors are gone, but we have completely broken this application first. The second thing will be moving the add functionality from there to right here. And we need this method again. That is an HTML input element. Run HTML element. Those two. So right now our application is broken, but we'll fix it in a few. So what I just need is app add first to be shown there, and app display to be shown there. Awesome. We now have this, but our application is broken. Even the styling broken, everything broken. So let's go back here. And let me remind you of something. Yesterday we had a template. And we had what what's the other side on it? So now me test understanding if you guys are understanding this. All right. Quick question to Piera is always complaining. Give me the name of this binding technique from that arrow direction.
Ya kwanza,
Yeah,
event binding.
event binding. That's nice. At least level to pay story is a job. Piero is a job. Sorry, I was angry. But she's a farm. Anyway, my next question goes to Cynthia. Yes, just guess out here, Cynthia, since last month. Give us the name of the other.
Interpolation.
String interpolation. That's good. Jason, give me another one. Property binding. So Cynthia was not wrong. Only that I want to explain with property binding. So it can either be string interpolation or property binding. So now, component communication is going to use this technique. So let me just copy this. And bring it down here. But what I'll change here, this will be parent. And this will be child. Right there. So this is what is happening now, if you can visualize it all. We have add person to app is child to parent. So child to parent is going to use event binding. And parent to child is going to use property binding. So you can see all these design patterns are going, we are resharing them everywhere we go. Same case to directives, they still had that binding technique whereby we use property binding. Okay. Hope you have understood up to them, unless someone has a question before we start coding now. Okay, then if there's no question, we can now write the code. So let me just add a dummy data right here. We'll have a name. And we have a role. That way. So this is a dummy data. How can we get it to the child that is display? And the child is supposed to display it. So in the child, don't get confused. In the child, there's no data at this time. We just have it finding the structure and everything, and it's empty. So now we need to tell Angular that I'm expecting data from the parent. So to do this, we use a directive, decorator, and this is called input because I'm inputting data to this component. Right there. Make sure it's imported from Angular core. So now this component says that it's expecting some data from a parent component. So we have input there. And now back to the component in the HTML file. I'm supposed to do what? To use, let me go back here. I'm supposed to use property binding because this direction is going this way. To the child, I'm supposed to use property binding and pass this data. So when I say binding there, or when I use that square bracket, which is the syntax of property binding, and type something like that, I can't get it. Actually, it's the wrong one because I'm supposed to be working with my display. When I see this, you can see already it's telling me there's a property called data. And this property expects some data. So I have to pass in the data. So I point it to the data that is inside my TS file here, the dummy data. Cool. Let's see what happens. We get this message because I never saved there. So we get this. Why is my H1 not displaying? Let me go back. Yeah. Oh yeah. Something is not closed. Oh, okay. It's not displaying maybe because of these many things that you have. Yeah. So styling now what is affecting it because it can't find the classes, and I'll talk about that. So now, but if of course I copy the styles, this is going to work perfectly. So I guess the best thing actually would be just to copy these slides, not slides, into display. Yeah. So we're back here, and that solves the first problem of passing data from parent to child. So using property binding, that is solved. Any question?
Kindly repeat again.
Okay. First, have you understood this part?
Yeah.
Cool. So now, what I've done is first I went to my TS, created a variable called data, gave it a type, and said is equals to 0. Increase the font size right there. So I went to this part and created a property. First, forget about this. Created a property called data, and I say that it's supposed to hold this type. I can even remove the initialization there, which will cause a problem, but I'll just have that exclamation saying that this won't be null. I will assign a value. Just be patient with me. I'll assign a value. So that's what this exclamation mark means. It won't be null. It won't be empty. So I have this property. This is just a normal property. But now we want to pass data to this property from the parent to the child, because this display component which is a child of the app component. So I need to mark this property as a property that is expecting data from the parent. To mark that, I need to use a decorator called input from Angular Core. So what input does is it marks that property as a property that is expecting data from a parent component. The thing is, you have to pass the data from the parent to the child. That's what we're supposed to do again. Now we have marked this data as a property that is expecting data from the parent. The next step is go to the parent and pass that data then. So we go to the parent, and right here, when we say to the things I want to bind something, because I'm using property binding. So you have that is the syntax of property binding, those square brackets. So when you say I want to bind something, you get a suggestion of the data. So the data is one thing that this component is expecting from the parent. That's why it's available here. So you say data, and then I have to give the value. The value is the data that I want to pass from the parent to the child. So in the parent TS file, we have this dummy data, and we pass in there. The variable is data, so we pass in data there, and that stops complaining. So now, since communication will occur from the parent to child, it means that our child right now has the data. Let's see if that really works actually. Our child has the data and it can look through it. So are we together up to hapo sasa? Roy, Kuku.
Yeah.
Awesome. Any question about input or parent to child communication? So one takeaway from this is you have to see the flow that is happening, the data flow that is parent to child, and know that that is going to use input. And this is how you bind it. So you go to the parent and bind data to that that component, and here you pass in the data that is supposed to be passed. So here we have data and data in our case, and that's how communication happens from the child, parent to child. Something I can add on this, you can still use aliases right now we are binding to a property called data in our parent. Assuming I want to give a different name, I'll just go here and say custom name. So now I won't need to bind to data, I need to bind to custom name. So it's just an alias giving a different name for the input. It's not a must, it's not necessary, but kuna security a bit because you are not exposing the variables names, you are giving aliases to these. So it may mean custom name, but in the component we are using it as data. There's some people who loop it here. So maybe you're watching a tutorial and you see ng4 being added here. Don't panic. So ng4 being added here means that we are not going to expect an array here, but we are going, we are not expecting an array, but we are expecting an object. So, which will also affect this. But the thing is, if we have ng4 at this level of the component, you'll still see this use case. Let me try writing it. ng4, and people will say let person of variable is data. Sorry, I'm not consistent with the names and I'm using irrelevant names. And then instead of binding to person, or instead of binding data, I can come back here and remove this ng4, where is it? This one. Remove that and this. This means I want now to pass an object called person. So in my TS, I'll just change this to be person. Because a person can have this structure, name and role. I'll delete this. I may come back to that later. So I have a person, so this will now be person. And I'll just check ng if person. Display this. Now we won't have index. Let's see of a way of having index in this too. We can't have index at this level. Index is at the top level. So this is also another practice. Are we still achieving the same? Yes. This and go back here. I get no student because I'm not binding. So I'll now bind to custom name and I'll pass in person. So let's see, you still get the same output. So instead of passing an array and going to the child component and looping through it, we are looping at the parent, and each time we loop through is going to create, not create, but display a person. So in the child, we are expecting to get an object this time, not an array. And when we just get the object, we just display it. So if you see this, don't get confused, nothing different, just a different perspective and structuring of the code. Any question up to that point? Elvis.
So how do the components detect the changes? Like, is there an equivalent of like, okay, there are hooks in React. So is there an equivalent of them here?
Lifecycle methods.
Okay, so there's an equivalent that does the same thing, like on init, on change, on load, and such like.
Yeah. If you check our components, the ones created by the terminal, will not. Okay, right now they don't have it, but oh yeah, I think they removed that part. But initially they used to create components, and they add for you one hook on it, and maybe I can show you. Just says implements, and then ng on it. Oh, should be on init. Yeah, these are hook. This means on initialization. We'll talk about hooks but they are lifecycle methods here. Right. Any question more? Any more question? All right. Let's reverse the order. Now we want our child to communicate to the parent. So add person to send data to the parent, and then this data will. Okay, a change in this means that a re-render for all this, and after re-render, then we have display person getting the data again and displaying the new the new data that they will get from the component. So if we have to implement child to parent, then this is event binding. So we have to come up with a custom event, emit it, and we are going to get this data now. All right, let's do that. So I'll go to my add component here. I have everything on the HTML side done. What I just need is right here. When I say add person, I'm supposed to emit an event to the parent, and the parent will re-render, and the parent re-rendering means that display will also if the parent re-renders means that the child or the children of this parent also re-render, and that means that display will have the updated data. But let's do this first. I'll say I'll just name it this sent data, not type, but equals to new event emit. All right, that's a new thing. We haven't used event emitter, but what happens with an event is that it emits. If it's a click, it emits. So behind this, like coming up with our own event, and we define how this event is going to look, what data is going to be carried in this event, and all that. So, and is a generic type, and it takes in the type of data that is going to be carried along. So we just need this event to carry a name and a role. So I'll just give it a name of type string and a role. That way. So these are the two things that this event needs. And actually I'm defining it in the wrong place. I'm supposed to define it inside the class. What is happening? That way. So we have our event emitter. Event emitter is creating, when you see the new keyword, you know that an instance has been created. So whatever is stored in this is an instance. Send data right now is an instance. So if it's an instance, it means that some methods are defined. Now this method that we need is a method called emit. Emit means now I've created the event, but now I want to use it or to send this data. This is just a definition, but now let's send data. Let's emit this event. Let's this event happen right now. So when I emit an event, I'll pass in what? A name, and you can see suggesting me a name because I have my event typed. So I'll have name and I'll give it a value of name dot value. Remember, we are getting the value from the input, and I'll have a role. I'll give it the value of role dot value. That way. But now, if for decorators, for a decorator that is about to receive some data, we had input. What about the one that we are supposed to use to send data upwards to a parent? It's supposed to also have a decorator, and this decorator is the one you just guessed, output. So output says that I'm sending something from the child to the parent. Input means that I'm expecting something from the parent to the child, or the child is expecting something from the parent. Output means that I'm sending something to the parent, or the parent is expecting something from the child. Right there. So we are done with this. Now, the component, that is the child, has emitted the event. What should happen in the parent? The parent should then receive the event and do something with the data that is coming along. Let's go here and say I'm expecting something. So you can see it's even suggesting one of the events that you're expecting to be emitted from the child is sent data. And then you can say add in our tiers. What do we have here? We have add person. We have add person. Now. This data, where am I going to get it? Hiki tulisoma jana. Here data. Someone to try. Where will I get it from? Tanza Kuwait. Vera.
From template.
Template. Okay. Yeah. Yes.
Think also from template.
Okay. Christian.
I think it's, I'm not sure, I think it's in the RTS file.
Okay. Brian.
I think it's from template.
Template. Okay. John. Tangu utoke Windows utuongeleshe.
I think it's from the yes where we have passed the third person function.
From
From the TS file.
from the TS file.
Yeah, where we have that third person function.
Right. Onesimus.
Kindly repeat the question.
How can I get this data that we did send from the child in the parent? Because in the child here, while I was emitting this event, I emitted the event with some data. So how can I get this data? Or none?
I am not sure how to pass that data.
Okay, it's something we have covered. We did it yesterday actually, when we were talking about event binding. Elvis?
I think at the app component TS file.
Okay. All right. Where I'm going? Okay. Let me write some code here. And I have a click event. No, sorry, this should be click, just click. I'll just call this, not this, but test. Let me just call it test. So if I want to get the data about this event, what should I pass here?
Can I try?
Yeah.
Keyword event with the $sign.
So that way. So there's nothing different here. We still pass the same. Now, on the other side of this, we won't be receiving this, but this time we'll receive event. And the good thing is our event, we know the type. And since we defined the type here, the type of this or the data that is being carried here. So we're expecting a data of this type. So now for event, for the name, I'll get it from event dot name, and role, I'll get it from event2 dot role. Okay, so let's test this and see how this is working. What is this displaying here? Let's add someone. So you can see it's still working. Because you even machanganya. So let me repeat it. We are trying to communicate from a child to a parent. So to do this communication, we need to write our own or a custom event. So to write a custom event, we are using the event emitter class, which we are using the event emitter class to write our own custom event. And we are even strong typing our custom event depending on the data that this event is going to carry. So we are passing in this type here. This is just a type. And at the end, we execute it. And then the other thing is that we are marking this property with the output decorator, just to say that this property is sending data to a parent component. Okay. After that, when we click add person, then we emit the event, or the event. Emitting the event means that it's more of like the event now happening. So we make the event happen. So we emit the event and we are passing data to that event. This data is the data we are getting from the template. So right here is where we stop dealing with templates and we are done. Or even templates, we deal with them right here, because we are using template variables and they can be used outside the template. So they can be using the TS. Template variables work ended right here after passing that. So the TS can handle the rest, receive the reference and then read the values from the reference and add it. So now, after reading that, we emit this event, or we make this event happen. And we send with it some data this way. So now our parent is expecting an event, because the other case was our child is expecting data. This time our parent is expecting an event. So our parent is binding to that custom event that we have created. And when it binds, then it can call another method on the TS and pass in the data of that event. The same case, this is passing in the data of the click event. So we can pass in the data of that event. Whatever we receive here is the event on the TS. So we receive event, but we know the type, because these are our custom event that we have written. So we know the type, that it has an object that has name and role. And we can now push those into the array. Any question? So if you push right now, you can see all this can happen. Questions, or if you never understood. Go ahead.
What type of communication are we achieving here? Child, parent, child, or child to child direct? Like who?
Child, parent, because we still implementing this structure here. Child gets the data, pass it to the parent, because our array is in the parent. If we come here, this is the array, and this is the parent app component. So child to parent, and parent will re-render, and when it's re-rendering, it will pass that data, the updated data, to the display person, and display person has the updated data. It will just look through. So from here, child to parent, from here going this way, parent to child.
Okay, just curious. So there's no way you can communicate sibling to sibling directly without an intermediary?
You can. You'll always need an intermediary, always. most of the times, but we can leverage that by using services. So with services, you don't need the parent, or they don't have to be like parent-child or have that parent-child relationship. Service is on its own. It doesn't require you to be a child of a parent in order for you to communicate with another component. No, it doesn't require you to have a common parent. No. So services will now come and replace the app, and you can use them application-wide. And that will mean that I don't need to pass data from parent to child to the child of that child. I just need to read the data from the service directly from any component. The other way we will use in our advanced, when we advance later now, is state management.
Okay, so that's why you'll need dependency injection for sibling to sibling, like between the two. If you won't have an intermediate, then you will need to somehow to manage those dependencies, the services.
Yeah, services. Okay. Yeah, we need DI.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any maswali? Okay. If you have worked with React, you will notice that if I come here to my app, remember app is still parent, and where can I style this? And style a paragraph and give it a color. And I'll just give a weird color here, brown. And then have a paragraph there. Here comes nothing. So this paragraph has nothing. So I can see my paragraph here. But student is also a paragraph. Let's not forget that. And this is in the parent. Here comes nothing is in the parent. Student is in the child. Is a child component, or is part of the child component. So if you have been to React, these two should affect the styling. It will inherit the styling from the parent. That's why I can't remember. Let me see what React people use. Okay. Let me go to my teams just a minute and check on styling. Okay, got it. So with React, this scoping, CSS is scoped. So a CSS that is defined in parent will scope all the way to child. And then some of the solution are these, using CSS modules and using styled component packages. That's an external package. Anyway, that's not my focus. But the thing is, there's something preventing this style from being a global style, if I may define it that way. And let's see what is happening here. So when I go to app and I see this paragraph, I never gave whatever is right here. Let me see if I can expand. Yeah. I never wrote this here, ng content drv c46. I never wrote that. We never wrote that. And then when we go also to our add component, and we have a right there we don't have anything. Let's go to the display and the div right here, and the paragraph. We never wrote ng content drv c45. So this means that that is Angular which added those classes. And what could be the purpose of these attributes added to it? The purpose is to differentiate between the two styles of the two components. So you can see anything that is in this component is getting a 46 and this is getting a 45. So this means that these two paragraphs are in different components and they won't have the same styling unless the style is defined in the style sheet of that component. They won't have the same styling. So this parent styling won't scope to the child styling, but that can happen. How can that happen? You need to change something so for that to happen. So yeah, in the component decorator, we always have something called encapsulation, and this encapsulation holds a value of view encapsulation first, and then it holds three things: emulated, none, and shadow DOM. Let's start with emulated. This is the default. So emulated means that the styles defined in this component are private to this component. They won't scope to the child component. So that is emulated. Default, you don't need to say it. None. So let's see the behavior of none. You can see it's affecting the styling of the child component. So none will raise now this style to the global state. It means that any paragraph that is going to be in this application is going to get that styling. As you can see right now, it's already affecting our styling right here. They have the same style. So none means that I'm pushing these styles to the global scope, and any component or paragraph will be able to access to use the same styling. We have another one here. It's called shadow DOM. So emulated works almost the same as shadow DOM. Shadow DOM was not supported for all browser versions. So if a browser doesn't support shadow DOM, then it has to use emulated. But there's a difference between the two. The difference is that for emulated, it will scope to the child or the children. So if I have another, let's take this out of here and just have a sample component ng. See, meter component in here. Okay, it works. So if I have this here, let me just call the sample component inside the display, not in my approved. So I have the sample there. It's okay. You can see if we come back here, it's displaying. So now I'll go ahead and go to my app and first save this. So this means that now everything is independent and the app is independent. So if I define a style here in the display component, I want to define this here. Just need to import this. Encapsulation. if I go right here and now say that the paragraphs here are going to be of color let's go violet. I don't know. So you can see it's affecting the paragraphs that are in the parent and the child of this parent only child parent. Parent and the children of this parent. It's not affecting anything else. But let's go with none then and see what happens. This is the child still, not the parent. Let's go with none. So, and let's first remove this. So you can see none is affecting application word white. Shadow DOM is affecting the parent and the children of this component. That's the difference between Shadow DOM and emulated. And none. Emulated means that every style is private to every component, so it won't affect other components. The styling of this component doesn't affect the other components. That's just a touch on styling and why this weird syntax. So now if you check on these and we go here, and where right here, we just get a paragraph. Yeah, you can see there was nothing that was added to this. There's not this syntax, but still it's going to affect each and every paragraph when it's none. Swan. Let's get to the questions. Yeah, go ahead. Obed.
So let's say, for example, you have a child component, and that child component has nested other components. If you implement the shadow DOM on that component, what will be the scope of the nested components within that child?
The scope will be that component and the children of that component only. That component where you have defined the shadow DOM and the children of that component, all the children of that component, those two. With none, it means the whole application is going to get the styling. With emulated means that style is only for that component, not the children, that component. So that's the difference between the three. But we are going to be using emulated. That's the default one. You don't need to keep defining it. That's the default one. Go ahead. Any other question? Yeah, go ahead.
So I noticed when you are inspecting the DOM, that on the developer, on the elements, it spits out the actual custom template names that we define with some also custom those attributes. So how does the DOM understand that? Because in React you write JSX, but it ends up as HTML, the standard one. So how is the browser able to understand this non-standard?
Oh, okay. Again, let's go back to directive first. Directive are some instruction that you give to the DOM. So it's going to understand this based on the instruction given. So again, the Angular will keep adding a lot of more classes to it. And through these classes, it understands what to do. So it has its own custom classes that are going to be added, and through them, it knows what each and every class means. We'll see this come to play in when we are dealing with forms. So Angular will keep adding classes for you. For example, it can add a class for, let's say it's validation. You're validating a form. So Angular will add for you a class like invalid if the form is invalid, if the input is invalid, if the form is invalid. It will keep adding a lot of classes that are defined by the framework, and with these classes, it understands the behavior that is supposed to happen. And also you can reuse those classes for your benefit. For example, I can use the invalid classes. I can give my own styling to that, and every time my form is invalid, it picks my styling and adds and displays with those styling. So one directive, again, classes. I don't know if Angular is using Babel. I have no idea.
So meaning Angular somehow extends the DOM, like it adds more elements and ways of handling those attributes on the element it adds.
Yeah, it extends the DOM, adding more and more.
Okay, still on the same. So so you can't really scrape. You can't scrape a site that is written by Angular because it does not have. I can't see the standard one. So you can't really scrape data of a page that is written in Angular.
I haven't tried that, but I might assume that you can. But unless I try it first, I haven't tried that.
The reason I ask because when you are trying to scrap, you are targeting the known, like the standard HTML attributes, and then here the most are not even standard.
The standard HTML attributes or elements.
Well, elements and attributes.
Yeah, you still get them, because if you add an element here or an attribute, it's still going to appear. You can see the elements, but Angular now adds its own classes to help it work better. So I don't know if there's a way these classes can be removed and you can remain with the normal attributes and styles. Sorry, not styles, but element tags. That's why I'm saying, unless I first try that and see what will happen after that. Because there are so many classes that are going to come to that Angular is going to add for its functionality. Okay. Any other question? All right. That's it. Shera alikuwa na maneno za kutuambia. She was complaining that I'm giving you less time. I should not record this.